Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Deal, and today we're going to talk about the Revolutionary War. We're coming up on the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. And the problem with that is there are so many people that are born here, live here, educated here, never left this country, but they can't tell you anything about the history of this country except July 4th. 1776. Ask them what's so eventful. A lot of people don't know that. The education system is slacking. A lot of people don't care. And a lot of good people that did a lot for this country, they don't get remembered. And many of these people, we wouldn't be a country without a lot of these people of the past. Now you know about George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all them boys got their picture on money and did all this and that. But there were people behind the scenes working, fighting, hustling to keep this country going. And if they didn't do their job, we wouldn't be a country. We'd be controlled by the British. I'm sure there might have been another revolution along the way, but you never know. Because 1812 they came back and a lot of Americans wanted them back. And in the beginning of the revolution, around the 1770s, and that time, 1775 on, there were a lot of people that were Tories. There were states that did not want to go to war. They liked being subject to Britain rule and doing whatever they said. But there were a lot of people that didn't like that, and I don't blame them. The taxation without representation was a horrible thing. The Stamp Tax Act, you can go look at my other podcasts. I've talked about this before. Go look at the one where I talked about the origin of money and things like that, So, but the problem I have is we're coming up on the 250th birthday of this great land of ours. And mind you, it's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. There's not a country out there that's perfect. But this is how I feel about the United States of America. It's my home. It's where I was born. My family has given their lives in battle. I've lost some people close to me in war. I've had family come home injured from war. I have had a lot of friends go to battle. I've had some come back with a lot of damage done to them because of chemical testing and things like that. The country's not perfect, but it's my home. And I look at it this way. If you don't want to be in the homeland, if you don't like the home team, get out of the stadium, people. That's how I feel. And to those that have served our country during war and peace times, I salute you, my brothers and sisters. And I give you a lot of credit. So let's go talk about the Revolutionary War. And today we're going to talk about somebody. This man made this country what it is. Without this man, we would not have a country. This man was a straight shooter, a good man, and he did anything he could to hustle to keep this country going. When war was declared, we didn't have any money. United States, back then the colonies will say, there was no money, there was no taxes, all the money went to Britain. So these guys, these good old boys were volunteering their weapons and their ammo. They didn't have any money. Most of them were farmers. There wasn't a lot going on. And, even today, there's a lot of racism and hate and prejudice in America against different cultures, different races and stuff. And that's been going on forever. And there's a certain group of people that get persecuted a little more than others. They're one of the smallest groups in the world, about 15 million of them. And that's the Jewish people. And don't roll your eyes at me. Don't be like, oh, here we go again with the Jews. Because the Jews have been very important to our culture. They've cured diseases. If you're listening to this right now, well, you can thank a Jew. Bluetooth, GPS, Wi-Fi was all laid on the groundwork by the great actress, beautiful woman, Hedy Lamarr. She came up with some great stuff in World War II, which was wireless things to stop missiles and torpedoes. She came up with that all on her own because she was super smart and she cared. She cared about her country. So if you got a problem with that, stop listening. You got a problem with the Jews, don't drive your car. Jews made the windshields and windows in your cars. Don't watch TV. That came from a Jew too. And you know where the United States of America came from? A Jew. America had no money. The colonies had no freaking money. And there was a young man who had come here. He lived in Poland. He was a Polish-Lithuanian Jew. And basically he had to leave because back then, so here's the deal. In Spain, 1492, Spain kicked out everyone that was a Jew. And Poland and a lot of other countries over there were doing the same thing. They didn't want Jews there. Why? No reason. Just hatred. Mainly because, honestly, they weren't Catholic. And they said, you can convert or die. And you know what? A lot of Jews were like, no. Some faked it. But he's like, nope. His family left, went all over Europe. And while he was over there in Europe, he learned a few things. He went to different countries, learned their cultures, got along with a lot of people, and he learned how to be a financial broker. Yeah, I know. Surprise, surprise. A Jewish guy good with money. You never hear about that, do you? Anyway, he came over here to America after touring Western Europe and after learning the career of being a financial broker, and he was doing great over there. In 1775, he came to New York City, and he got hooked up. He hooked up with some Jewish brothers because, you know, just like any other culture, you take care of your own. And he got a good job, and he was doing financial brokering, and he was doing really good. Well, he knew what was going on around him. He knew the war was coming. He knew something was going on. And he sympathized with the Patriots. He didn't like all those rules and regulations. He didn't like what the Redcoats were doing. So he started sticking up for, you know, the Patriots. The rebels, as they were called. 1776, when everything started going down big time. The Brits arrested him. They arrested him, said he was a spy. He was a spy because he could speak Hebrew, German, and other language. So obviously he was spying on them. So what they did is they kept him locked up on a boat for 18 months. And the war was going on at this time. So he's on a British boat getting fired at by the American Patriots. But he escaped. And they kept him on there because he spoke German. So that way he can interpret all the Hessians that they were catching. And, you know, interpret them. And because they were, you know, they were basically beating him up. What are you doing? Why are you doing this and stuff? Tell us what he said. So then he got arrested a couple more times. He got arrested a total of 3 times because he was a spy. Because he wouldn't kiss their butts. He was against them. And they knew he had money and knew how to make money. So they wanted to take advantage of that. And they didn't want him working with the colonists that were rebelling because they knew he knew what he was doing. And they didn't like that very well. They sentenced him to death. They sentenced him to death. But he snuck out. He got away. And he went to Philly. Now, New York City, you know, all these cities had, you know, the Redcoats were over there. But there was less over there in Philly at that time. And it's not like today where you get in a car and you drive a couple hours, you know. That took a lot for them to do, to get on a horse and drive all that time. And you got to stop and spend the night and feed the horse and everything else. So he got away to Philly. And what he started doing there is he got involved. Now, he knew George Washington. He knew a lot of these colonists. He was a Freemason, just like most of the other people. And so he was very well connected to these guys. This man that I'm talking about, he was the primary premier financer for the Continental Congress. And that's who was funding the war. And he worked beside Robert Morris, who was the superintendent of finance. Now, Morris had connections. He knew everybody. He knew Washington, Jefferson, all those guys. I believe Morris was one of just a couple people that was present and signed almost every document that was pertaining to our freedom at this time. There's only a couple people that did that. I'm pretty sure Morris was one of them. And Morris needed his help. Morris is like, man, we got to get some money and stuff. And he goes, you know what? I got some connections. And he started reaching out to his Jewish brothers and sisters saying, look, man, we don't like this. We don't want this. So how about you guys help us out? And they're like, heck yeah, what do you need? They started donating money. They started hustling. They started doing some wheeling and dealing, selling off some stuff, selling properties, doing what they could, and donated all that money to him. And he was investing that money so they would get their initial money back. But the extra money was going to the Congress, so eventually they would get paid back. So it wasn't so shady, you know what I mean? And it wasn't just the Jews. He went and he got French involved. He went to France. He talked to France, and they were like, yeah, okay. And they were lending us money. That was a little different. But he made a lot of deals. Some of it might have been underhanded, but the people got paid back, and they weren't left hanging, and they would donate extra stuff. There were people donating left and right for him because he had a good way with people, and he knew how to hustle money. He was a great man. And it was getting towards the end, man. And so I don't know if you know about the Yorktown campaign, but that's one of the ones that went over the top. But people were giving up because there was no money. And the people were sad. They're like, this isn't working. They're going to win. We got nothing. We don't even have any ammo. We can't even feed the horses. Come on, man. And people were starting to mutiny. They were ready to rebel. There were people giving up and just leaving. George Washington said to Robert Morris, get me this guy I'm talking about. He said his exact name and everything. So what did this man do? Sorry about the cough. He raised $20,000 through friends and his own private donations. He gave a lot of his own money. He gave his life for this, man, for this country. That's why it makes me mad when anybody dogs out the Jews here in the United States of America, because they've done a lot. We wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for people like him. He raised $20,000 like that. You heard the snap. $20,000. Next thing you know, there's bullets, there's ammos, there's guns, there's uniforms, there's blankets. You need this, we got this. Got the home ladies, here you go, here's some money. Go sew us some sleeper bags for these boys. Make us some blankets, sweetheart. These little old ladies were out there, oh my! And they did what they had to do. They were baking food because they had the money to buy this stuff now. Because these people didn't have money. $20,000. Now, you know how much money that is in today's money? That's $600,000. That's a lot of freaking money. And the Yorktown campaign's what turned everything around. That's when the Brits like, oh crap, we ain't going to win the war. And that's when they gave up. And it was all mainly thanks to this man raising money. Washington was grateful. Washington was so grateful. Everybody was grateful. There wasn't as much prejudice towards the Jews with this man. And in the Revolutionary War, throughout the whole war, he provided $650,000. That's how much he got in loans, donations, giving his own money. Now, $650,000 back then, that's a lot of freaking money, even back then. That's worth about $15 million today. Two big buck deals. He made great deals with France, and he did so much. And like I said, these little old ladies sewing those blankets, here's some money. Get them what they need. Get the material. Get that food. Little old ladies baking stuff. Young women out there baking and stuff. And mind you, there were young women with guns out there. They see a redcoat, they'd shoot them. Them good old girls are tough, and we still have a lot of them in America today, man. But he did so much to get this country going. Without him, we probably wouldn't have made it. He donated his whole fortune. He could have said, screw you, and sat around, got on the line with the redcoats like the rest of the world does. You know, I mean, not everybody back then wanted to be its independent colonies. That's how it is today. You got people crying about the government, but they don't get involved. They don't vote. They don't put resolutions out there. Most people can't even tell you who their congressman or senator is. The only thing they know is the president. And you either hate him and you love him, one or the other. And anything, if you hate him, anything he likes, you hate for some reason. If you love him, well, there's a lot of things he likes you still don't like. So that's how it was back then, too. This man gave everything he had because he wanted a free and independent nation for everybody. He wasn't for slavery. He didn't want slavery. He didn't want none of that stuff. He wanted everybody to be free. He wanted us to be away from the yoke of the oppression of Great Britain and the limeys and the redcoats. He was a great man. But I guarantee when I say his name, you're going to be like, who? Because most of y'all never heard of him. Because they don't preach this stuff to you. You only hear about certain things. He's got no statues in D.C. He's got no monuments in D.C. Oh, they've done a couple things for him over the years. Printed a coin out for him and stuff. Now in Philly, he's got a lot going on. Now, he did a lot for the Jewish community, obviously, being Jewish. He started the Mikvah Temple, which is the oldest continuous temple in Philadelphia. I've been there. It's a beautiful temple. Everybody there is nice and friendly. The rabbi invited me in. I had my little service dog with me, and he got to go in there. We couldn't go into the prayer room because, dogs aren't allowed in there. But it was beautiful. And there's all this old stuff from way back when, from the Revolution, from the war between the states. We got recent presidents that wrote letters and stuff. It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. Now, at this time, during the war and stuff, there was a lot of things that still went around. Like in 1782, he made the largest donation to the construction of the Congregation Mikveh Israel. But there were a lot of rules. There were a lot of rules about religious testing. There was a religious test oath, which was required for anybody that was office holding under the state constitution. And what it was is these laws were originally set up against the Quakers, because people didn't like the Quakers. And funny thing was, Ben Franklin was a Quaker. But they wanted to disenfranchise the Quakers because they ruled. They had the majority. So people came up with these rules, and they were caught up in this, I guess you could call it an anti-democratic conspiracy or ploy. But he got Robert Morris, who he was working with, to introduce legislation to end the test laws. Because not only did it affect the Quakers, it affected the Jews. They wanted to know what your religion was, and when they saw Jewish, like, ooh, yeah, you can't really hold an office or anything. So he got this passed, and in 1784, there was a lot of anti-Semitic slander going on about this in the media. I was going to say something, but it's like, I was going to say you could do that back then, but they still do it now, don't they? Huh. Not much has changed, has it? Huh. Well, media was a little more independent then, but they were very racist. And if they didn't like you, they'd tell you. So when he got some of this stuff done, the press was going after him. Just like when he was making money for the country, they were like, well, how much is he keeping? The typical Jews got all the money, control everything, and that's all they're all about. But he told them, he said, I am a Jew. It is my own nation. Talking about the United States, I do not despair that we shall obtain every other privilege that we aspire to enjoy along with our fellow citizens. And he was talking about the United States of America. And he said Jews basically should be equal with everybody. And he was right. And he was exactly right. He told it like it was. He was very proud of his Judaism. And I'll tell you this man, like I said, he hustled $15 million. Could you do that? Could you do that? And how many people today would do that and not get a big cut of it, right? Well, let me tell you about him, man. Let me tell you something. This man passed away at a very young age due to tuberculosis. He passed away January 6, 1785 in the city of Philadelphia. And he died broke. He had nothing. His family had nothing. He was living in poverty. Matter of fact, his partner, Robert Morris, who was superintendent, He was always hustling, trying to help too. Eventually, he died years later. He died in poverty. He actually spent a couple years in debtor's prison. But this man died of poverty. The hundreds of thousands of dollars that he brought forth, when he died, it was only for him worth about 10 cents on the dollar. He had nothing. He was 44 years old when he died. Tuberculosis. They never paid him back. The private lenders never paid him back. The governments never paid him back. And history hasn't put him up there like they should. His legacy is like, in the Jewish community, he's a hero. In Philadelphia, he's a hero. They know about it. I've been to his grave. I've been to the statue. Like I said, I've been to the temple. He was a great man. See, I learned at young ages about these great people that you don't hear about that did a lot for this country. It's just like you hear about Betsy Ross and the flag. There's no proof she made the first flag. Give me a break. She just had good PR. But this man did as much as he could for this country. And he wanted everybody free and independent and equal. And that's what we need to do today. We need to remember that. We need to remember what he stood for and what he did. Without this man, the United States of America probably wouldn't have existed. Oh, sure, somebody else might have stepped up and done it, but I don't know. I highly doubt that because he was a great man. And I have a lot of respect for him, and you should too. And you should learn about these things and learn that a lot of these people, the legacy they left behind, you don't hear about it. But that man did more in 1 minute for the United States of America than most people have done in a lifetime. He's done more in 1 second than a lot of people out there have ever done for the United States. Most people take, they don't give. He gave all, including his life. There's always been speculation that he didn't die of tuberculosis and that Morris didn't die later on down the line of, what he was sick with. There's always been speculation that somebody took these guys out because they didn't want to repay them. If you look it up online, you won't find anything about that, really. But that's because they try to hide things like that. But there was always rumors about that. They're like, well, I think somebody killed him so they didn't have to pay him back. And honestly, what do you think? What do you think? It happens today, doesn't it? I think it's a possibility. Can't prove anything. I think it's sad that he died at a young age and didn't get to see America prosper. But this man, I'm very proud of him. And I salute you on our 250th birthday coming up, my friend. This man was Haym Salomon. He was a great man. Great Jewish man, and I'm proud of him. And this is Jewish American Heritage Month, people. And there's a lot of great things the Jewish people have done in this country for this country. And I think y'all need to let go of that racism and that prejudice. And I know there's a lot of people out there that feel that way, and it's horrible. But a lot of y'all need to let that go and realize that without the Jewish people and without great people like Haym that are not selfish and that care more about everybody's freedom than their own, those are the people we need in this world. And those are the people we need in this world right now more than ever. So let's never forget the name Haym Salomon. All right? He was a great man. And that's the problem with history. They don't teach you that anymore. How many people of you listening today ever heard of him? I can guarantee it's a minimal number. Seriously, man. And that bothers me. But anyway, I thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. And you know I'm going to come back with more truth real soon. Because this here's the real deal, baby. Peace.